Story 1 of 33. Australia's potential gas supply shortfall and government threat to limit LNG exports for winter 2024. Australia's potential gas supply shortfall and government threat to limit LNG exports for winter 2024. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Madeleine King, Australia's Minister for Resources, issued a notice of intent under the Australian Domestic Gas Security Mechanism, ADGSM, on, date implied, April 2024, to potentially limit LNG exports for July-September 2024. The ACCC forecast a potential gas supply shortfall of 12 petajoules for the third quarter, July or September 2024, including a 10 petajoule shortfall in July alone. The government will consult with major gas producers for 30 days, until mid-May 2024, before deciding whether to invoke the ADGSM to force export limits or secure domestic supply. The heads of agreement between the government and gas sector expired at the start of 2024, with no new deal reached as of April 2024. Santos is under particular pressure as it purchases uncontracted domestic gas to fulfill its LNG export contracts, with the notice of intent targeting its operations. But not all outlets told the same story. News Kamau states the notice does not place any limits on gas exports currently, while ABC implies the notice itself is a formal threat to impose export controls if producers do not comply. ABC reports the Prime Minister's department is exploring a new tax on gas and thermal coal exports for the May 2024 budget, but News Kamau makes no mention of this tax proposal. News Kamau emphasises Australia's domestic market is well supplied and the notice is purely precautionary, whereas ABC frames the move as a direct response to an impending shortage and a signal of government resolve to act. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 2 of 33. Sha'Carri Richardson wins the 2026 Stawell Gift 120m handicap race from scratch. Sha'Carri Richardson wins the 2026 Stawell Gift 120m handicap race from scratch. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Sha'Carri Richardson won the Stawell Gift 120m handicap race from scratch in 13.15 seconds on Monday, 2026. Richardson became the third woman ever to win the Stawell Gift from scratch. Charlotte Nielsen finished second in the women's final with a time of 13.20 seconds, Guardian, or 13.19 seconds, Thadej, starting 9 meters ahead of Richardson. Richardson's time of 13.15 seconds set a new record for the women's Stawell Gift 120m race. Christian Coleman won his 120m heat from scratch by 0.01 seconds over John Howe, ABC. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian reports Komolafe's winning time as 11.93 seconds, while Thadej reports it as 12.03 seconds. The Guardian says Nielsen's second-place time was 13.20 seconds, while Thadej says it was 13.19 seconds. ABC's Article 1 does not mention Richardson's semi-final time, while Guardian and Thadej both report it as 13.52 seconds. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, SBS News, and The Age. Story 3 of 33. Roller coaster malfunction leaves passengers suspended mid-ride at Gold Coast theme park. Roller coaster malfunction leaves passengers suspended mid-ride at Gold Coast theme park. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The DC Rivals hypercoaster at Warner Bros. Movie World, Gold Coast, experienced a mid-ride stoppage on Wednesday. Passengers were suspended on an uphill section approximately 10 meters above ground level. The stoppage was caused by a ride sensor activation according to Village Roadshow theme parks. All riders were safe and exited via safe stop zones with staff assistance. Video footage shows the train paused on a steep incline near a near-vertical drop. But not all outlets told the same story. News Kamau mentions the stoppage occurred on Wednesday but does not specify the exact date, while Guardian does not provide a day of the week. News Kamau states the cause of the stoppage is a ride sensor activation but does not specify further details, while Guardian does not elaborate on the cause beyond the same claim. This story was covered by The Guardian and news.com.au. Story 4 of 33. U.S. journalist Shelly Kittleson released after Iraq kidnapping by Iran-backed militia. U.S. journalist Shelly Kittleson released after Iraq kidnapping by Iran-backed militia. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Shelly Kittleson, a 49-year-old freelance journalist from Minnesota, was kidnapped on March 31 in Baghdad. Kittleson was released on April 7 after being held in Baghdad by Kataib Hezbollah, an Iran-backed Iraqi militia. Kataib Hezbollah announced her release in a statement citing appreciation for outgoing Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani's patriotic stances. The release was conditional on Kittleson leaving Iraq immediately upon her freedom. Kataib Hezbollah had previously been linked to the abduction of Israeli-Russian academic Elizabeth Tsurkov in 2023. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian says Kittleson was held in Baghdad the entire time, but News.com.au does not specify her exact location before release. News.com.au reports surveillance footage showed her abduction at a busy intersection, while The Guardian focuses on the crash near Al-Hazwa without confirming the exact pickup location. The Guardian mentions Kataib Hezbollah's statement as earlier in the day before her release, while News.com.au states it was announced on Tuesday, US time, at release time. This story was covered by The Guardian and news.com.au. Story 5 of 33. Rapper Offset shot outside Florida casino in 2024 incident. Rapper Offset shot outside Florida casino in 2024 incident. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Offset, Kiari Kendall Cephas, was shot outside the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida on Monday evening. Offset is in a stable condition, but his exact condition is unknown. He is being treated and closely monitored at a hospital. 2 people were detained by Seminole Police Department following the shooting. The Seminole Police Department stated the site is secure and operations continue as normal with no public threat. Offset was formerly married to Cardi B, with whom he has 3 children. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between the 2 sources. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 6 of 33. Tadej Pogacar's record-equaling Tour of Flanders win and red light incident investigation. Tadej Pogacar's record-equaling Tour of Flanders win and red light incident investigation. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Tadej Pogacar won the Tour of Flanders for a record-equaling 3rd time on Sunday, April 7, 2024. Pogacar and a group of riders, around 20, allegedly ran a red light at a railway crossing during the race, prompting an investigation by Belgian authorities. Belgian officials confirmed an investigation into the riders, with potential fines ranging from €320 to €4,000 and possible driving suspensions of up to 8 days. Pogacar stated he was alerted to stop too late, saying suddenly 3 guys jump on the middle of the road and start waving to stop. How can you stop in 1 second? The incident occurred at a railway crossing near the 212 to 278 km mark of the 278 km race, splitting the peloton into 2 groups. But not all outlets told the same story. Guardian Article 1 states the signal came in too late with Pogacar saying no, not 1 meters before the crossing, while Guardian Article 2 says not 10 meters before the crossing. Guardian Article 2 claims Pogacar had 12 monument wins, 2nd all-time, but this detail is not mentioned in Articles 1 or 3. ABC reports the crossing occurred near the 212 km mark, while Guardian Article 2 does not specify an exact distance but implies it was later in the race, after 18 km to go. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 7 of 33. Murder of Melbourne woman Eva Lasrini and arrest of Alan Keyes. Murder of Melbourne woman Eva Lasrini and arrest of Alan Keyes. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Eva Lasrini, 53, was reported missing on Thursday, June 27, 2024, after failing to contact her family. Her body was found on Saturday, June 29, 2024, near Little River Road and the Princes Freeway, Little River, about 46 kilometers southwest of Melbourne's CBD. Alan Keyes, a 67-year-old man, was arrested at Melbourne Airport on Friday, June 28, 2024, before boarding an international flight, and charged with murder over her death. Keyes appeared in Melbourne Magistrates Court on Saturday, June 29, 2024, and was remanded in custody to reappear on August 10, 2024. Lasrini had two daughters, Evindra and Vonya, who were in Indonesia with limited support following her death. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC reports Lasrini was 53 years old, while Thadej does not specify her age but confirms her age as 53 in context. No contradictions found in core factual details between sources. This story was covered by ABC News and The Age. Story 8 of 33. Family reviews Aldi Holidays budget trip to Phuket, Thailand. Family reviews Aldi Holidays budget trip to Phuket, Thailand. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The family booked a return trip to Phuket, Thailand, for 3 people through Aldi Holidays. The total cost after negotiation was $3,965 for 8 nights including flights, hotel, and activities. The package included return flights for 8 nights at a Novotel hotel, free daily buffet breakfast, and a choice of lunch or dinner daily. The hotel provided a cot for the toddler with a tiny pillow and doona. The family experienced a full-day Coral Island and Racha Island tour as part of the package. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between the two articles as they are nearly identical in content. This story was covered by Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 9 of 33. Australian SAS veteran Ben Roberts-Smith's arrest and war crimes prosecution. Australian SAS veteran Ben Roberts-Smith's arrest and war crimes prosecution. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Ben Roberts-Smith was arrested in Sydney on Tuesday, the 22nd of October, 2024, and charged with 5 counts of war crime, murder relating to alleged offences in Afghanistan between April 2009 and October 2012. Roberts-Smith is Australia's most decorated living soldier, having received the Victoria Cross for actions in Afghanistan. Justice Anthony Bisanko ruled in 2015 that on the balance of probabilities, Roberts-Smith committed war crimes, a decision upheld by 3 judges in May 2025 after he appealed. Roberts-Smith was first accused of war crimes in a 2012 Sydney Morning Herald investigation, leading to his 2015 defamation lawsuit against the paper. The AFP's prosecution requires proving guilt to a criminal standard, higher than civil, with a maximum penalty of life imprisonment for war crime, murder charges. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and *SMH* both report Roberts-Smith was arrested on Tuesday, but The Age does not specify the exact date of arrest. The Guardian and *SMH* state Roberts-Smith was charged with 5 counts of war crime, murder, while The Age does not explicitly state the number of charges. The Guardian and The Age mention Gina Rinehardt's support for Roberts-Smith, but *SMH* does not include her statement about the $300 million spent on the case in the same detail. This story was covered by The Guardian, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 10 of 33. Affordable flight options to Europe from Australia in 2026 amid Middle East instability. Affordable flight options to Europe from Australia in 2026 amid Middle East instability. Here's what every outlet agrees on. A business-class return flight from Melbourne to London with Etihad in mid-April to early May costs $4,881, nearly $2,000 cheaper than Emirates Premium Economy for the same route and dates. Economy class fares to Europe via Asia-based carriers, e.g., Air China, Malaysia Airlines, Qantas, Turkish Airlines, are comparable to 2025 prices, with examples like Melbourne to London for $1,295, Air China, or Sydney to Paris for $2,167, Malaysia Airlines. Return business class fares with Qantas, Singapore Airlines, Japan Airlines, ANA, or Turkish Airlines start at $12,000 for any departure in the next 6 months. China-based carriers and Vietnam Airlines offer sub-$10,000 return business class fares to Europe. Flights via the US, e.g., American Airlines, United, are safer but more expensive, with return economy fares ranging from $2,600 to $4,000 and business class from $12,664 to $13,551. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between the two sources. This story was covered by Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 11 of 33. US President Trump's threats to destroy Iran's civilian infrastructure and Iran's response ahead of a 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time deadline. US President Trump's threats to destroy Iran's civilian infrastructure and Iran's response ahead of a 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time deadline. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Donald Trump gave Iran a deadline of 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time Wednesday, to agree to a deal including a ceasefire and reopening the Strait of Hormuz, threatening a whole civilization will die tonight if no deal was reached. Newscamau, Thij, ABC, SMH, Guardian. US and Israeli forces struck military targets on Iran's Karg Island, a key oil export hub in the Strait of Hormuz, with reports of explosions and damage. Newscamau, Thij, ABC, SMH, Guardian. Iran's Karg Island is responsible for about 90% of Iran's oil exports, and the Strait of Hormuz is a critical global shipping route for roughly 20 to 30% of the world's oil supply. Thij, ABC, Guardian. French citizens Cécile Kohler and Jacques Paris were released from Iranian detention after 3.5 years, with mediation by Oman. Thij, SMH. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif proposed a 2-week ceasefire, with Trump extending his deadline and Iran opening the Strait of Hormuz as a goodwill gesture. Thij, SMH. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states Trump said the entire country of Iran will be taken out and every bridge in Iran will be decimated by midnight ET, while Thij and SMH report Trump's deadline was 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time Wednesday, with no explicit mention of a midnight ET deadline for total destruction. The Guardian reports Trump said he was not at all worried about committing possible war crimes, while ABC and Thij do not include this specific statement from Trump. ABC reports Trump criticized Australia and other allies for not joining the war, but this criticism is not mentioned in Thij or SMH. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 12 of 33. Toddler drowning incident and death in Queensland, Australia. Toddler drowning incident and death in Queensland, Australia. Here's what every outlet agrees on. An 18-month-old boy died at Tara Hospital after being pulled from water at a private property in Tara, Queensland, on Monday around 1 p.m. Emergency services were called to the property in Tara, about 300 to 320 kilometers west of Brisbane, shortly after 1 p.m. on Monday. The toddler was taken to Tara Hospital in a life-threatening condition and died hours later. Police stated the incident was not suspicious. A report will be prepared for the coroner. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC reports the toddler died in hospital hours later, while Newscamau states the toddler was still fighting for life at the time of their article. ABC states the incident was not suspicious without further investigation, while Newscamau says circumstances are still being investigated. ABC mentions the life flight helicopter was called to assist, but Newscamau does not mention this detail. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 13 of 33. The rumoured discontinuation of Masters gnome sales in 2026 and its cultural impact. The rumoured discontinuation of Masters gnome sales in 2026 and its cultural impact. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The Masters gnome was introduced in 2016 as a gift to hospitality grandees at Augusta National. By 2018, Masters gnomes were sold to the public and became highly collectible, especially the 2020 Santa gnome. A full set of Masters gnomes typically sells for over $20,000 on the secondary market. Individual gnomes cost $49.50 at source but resell for multiples of that price during Masters Week. Gnomes sell out within an hour of being placed on sale, with estimates suggesting up to 1,000 units daily. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states gnomes sell out within an hour of being placed on sale, while Article 2 does not specify a time frame but implies the same phenomenon. Article 1 suggests Augusta officials are irked by gnome hunting, while Article 2 focuses on Ridley's broader concerns about golf's evolution rather than direct criticism of gnome sales. Article 1 mentions the umbrella gnome design as a poor wee fellas needing protection, while Article 2 does not comment on the design's symbolism or tone. This story was covered by The Guardian. Story 14 of 33. Rex Heuermann's guilty plea for serial murders linked to Gilgo Beach killings. Rex Heuermann's guilty plea for serial murders linked to Gilgo Beach killings. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Rex Heuermann, a 62-year-old Manhattan architect from Massapequa Park, pleaded guilty to 7 murders and admitted to an 8th victim in the Gilgo Beach killings, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4. Heuermann strangled and dismembered 8 sex workers between 1993 and 2010, dumping their remains along Long Island, including Gilgo Beach, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4. The victims include Sandra Costilla, 1993, Karen Vergata, 1996, Valerie Mack, 2000, Jessica Taylor, 2003, Melissa Barthelemy, 2009, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 2007, Megan Waterman, 2010, and Amber Lynn Costello, 2010, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4. Heuermann's DNA was matched to a pizza box discarded in Manhattan, which helped crack the cold case, Articles 2, 4. Heuermann was arrested in July 2023 after police connected him to a pickup truck linked to a victim's disappearance, Articles 3, 4. But not all outlets told the same story. News Kamau, Articles 1, 2, states Heuermann lived in a pristine Long Island neighborhood, while ABC, Article 4, refers to it as a pristine Nassau neighborhood, nomenclature difference. News Kamau, Articles 1, 2, mentions Heuermann's basement was squalid compared to other houses, but ABC, Article 4, does not specify the condition of the basement. News Kamau, Articles 1, 2, states Heuermann was arrested outside his Manhattan office, while The Guardian, Article 3, says he was arrested on a Manhattan street. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 15 of 33. Conviction of Nicole Daedon for forced labor in orgasmic meditation cult One Taste. Conviction of Nicole Daedon for forced labor in orgasmic meditation cult One Taste. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Nicole Daedon, founder of One Taste, was convicted on forced labor conspiracy charges in 2023 and sentenced to 9 years in prison by a Brooklyn court in 2024. Daedon and Rachel Cherwitz were charged with using psychological, emotional, and financial coercion to control victims and extract labor services for personal benefit. One Taste was founded in 2005 in San Francisco, California, and practiced orgasmic meditation, OM, as a wellness activity. The FBI investigated One Taste, leading to charges against Daedon and Cherwitz, with prosecutors alleging victims were isolated and forced into labor or sexual favors. One Taste had 300,000 members at its peak and operated in multiple cities including Los Angeles, New York, Austin, and London. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Daedon was sentenced to 9 years in prison, while Article 2 does not specify the sentence length beyond the 2024 conviction. Article 1 claims 7 former adherents testified against Daedon, while Article 2 does not mention this exact number. Article 1 describes Daedon's courtroom response as a single word no, but Article 2 does not report this detail. This story was covered by The Guardian. Story 16 of 33. Swimmer Sam Williamson's injury comeback and Australian Open swimming results. Swimmer Sam Williamson's injury comeback and Australian Open swimming results. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Sam Williamson ruptured his patellar tendon and tore his VMO muscle in a training accident on April 10, 2024, 11 months before the Australian Open. Williamson underwent surgery within 24 hours of his injury at the Victorian Institute of Sport, VIS. He returned to competitive swimming at the Victorian state titles 10.5 months post-injury, swimming 27.08s in the 50-metre breaststroke. Williamson won the 50-metre breaststroke at the 2025 Australian Open with a time of 27.14s, retaining his 2025 national title. Williamson's injury occurred during a routine training session at his home in Melbourne. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Williamson's injury occurred in April 2024, 11 months before the Australian Open, but Article 2 does not specify the exact month of the injury, only that it was 11 months ago at the time of the Australian Open. Article 1 mentions Williamson's injury happened during a very regular Wednesday afternoon training session, while Article 2 refers to it as an innocuous Wednesday morning, no conflicting details but differing phrasing. Article 1 does not mention Williamson's 2025 national titles, 50m 100m breaststroke, before his injury, while Article 2 implies he was a defending champion in 2025, though both agree he won the 2025 Australian Open title. This story was covered by ABC News. Story 17 of 33. Severe tropical cyclone Mela threatening far north Queensland after cyclone Narelle. Severe tropical cyclone Mela threatening far north Queensland after cyclone Narelle. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Severe tropical cyclone Mela is expected to make landfall in far north Queensland, likely around Cape York Peninsula, early next week, between Sunday and Monday. Mela was a Category 4 storm with wind gusts of up to 260 km per hour as of recent reports, ABC, news.com.au, Guardian. Mela is currently located in the Solomon Sea, roughly 970 to 1,300 km east of Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, ABC, Guardian, news.com.au. Severe tropical cyclone Narelle made landfall in far north Queensland on the 20th of March, 2024 as a Category 4 system and later impacted the Northern Territory and Western Australia, Guardian, news.com.au, ABC. The Bureau of Meteorology, BOM, predicts Mela will weaken after crossing the Queensland coast, though there is a moderate chance it could re-intensify in the Gulf of Carpentaria, news.com.au. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian, Article 1, states Mela is a Category 5 storm, while ABC, Article 2, and news.com.au, Article 3, report it as a Category 4 system. The Guardian, Article 1, says Mela is expected to weaken as it approaches Australia, but news.com.au, Article 3, warns there's a moderate chance it could re-intensify in the Gulf of Carpentaria after landfall. ABC, Article 2, reports Mela will cross the coast as a Category 2 system, while The Guardian, Article 7, states it may cross as a Category 4 system. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 18 of 33. Perth parents' convictions for starving daughter overturned on appeal, bail granted for retrial. Perth parents' convictions for starving daughter overturned on appeal, bail granted for retrial. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The parents were convicted in November 2024 of charges related to starving their teenage daughter, including failing to protect her from harm and reckless care causing suffering. The daughter was admitted to Perth Children's Hospital in April 2021 at nearly 17 years old, weighing approximately 28 kilograms, 27 to 28 kilograms across sources. The father pleaded guilty to forging the daughter's birth certificate to make her appear younger than she was. The parents were sentenced in January 2025 to over 6 years, father, and 5 years, mother, with parole eligibility. The appeal court granted bail to both parents with a $50,000 personal undertaking and $50,000 surety. But not all outlets told the same story. News Kamau states the mother was convicted of failing to protect her from harm between 2019 and 2021, while ABC does not specify this exact time frame for the mother's charges. News Kamau mentions the mother was convicted of providing inadequate emotional, social, and functional development, but ABC does not mention this specific charge. News Kamau states the investigation began on April 7, 2021, while ABC does not specify the exact start date of the investigation. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 19 of 33. Victoria's regional train overcrowding during Easter due to free public transport. Victoria's regional train overcrowding during Easter due to free public transport. Here's what every outlet agrees on. V-Line regional trains in Victoria faced severe overcrowding over Easter 2025, with passengers forced to stand for hours on services like Bendigo, Swan Hill, and Bairnsdale. Passenger numbers surged 72% on Good Friday, 48,873 in 2024 to 84,145 in 2025, and 84% on Easter Saturday, 56,092 to 103,034, with Easter Sunday seeing a 118% increase, 43,833 to 95,639. The Eastern Rail Corridor to Bairnsdale saw the largest demand increase, with a 177% rise in passengers. V-Line added extra carriages and had over 300 standby coaches during the Easter long weekend to manage demand. The state government introduced free public transport in April 2025 to reduce fuel usage and ease cost of living pressures, leading to increased patronage. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian reports V-Line added extra carriages and 300 standby coaches to manage demand, while The Age does not specify the exact number of standby coaches but confirms extra services were run. The Guardian highlights comments from commuters about trains leaving Southern Cross jammed full with people standing, but The Age does not provide direct quotes from passengers about specific services being overcrowded. The Guardian mentions the Bendigo Easter Festival as a reason for increased demand, but The Age does not reference this event specifically. This story was covered by The Guardian and The Age. Story 20 of 33. Donald Trump's escalating threats against Iran over the Strait of Hormuz and potential military action. Donald Trump's escalating threats against Iran over the Strait of Hormuz and potential military action. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social on Easter Sunday, April 7th, saying Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one, in Iran, and demanded open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell, just watch. Trump added the phrase "Praise be to Allah" to his post on Truth Social. The original deadline for a deal was set at Monday, April 6th, but Trump extended it to 8 p.m. Tuesday, U.S. time, April 8th. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, Iranian parliamentary speaker, responded by saying Trump's recklessness was dragging Americans into living hell and threatened to burn the entire region. Elon Goldenberg, former U.S. Defense Department Iran specialist and VP of J Street, stated Trump's madman theory approach is breaking down with Iran as it sees backing down as existential. But not all outlets told the same story. No contradictions found between sources, as both articles are nearly identical in content and reporting. This story was covered by Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. Story 21 of 33. Government and states agree to further fuel excise cuts and GST revenue redistribution for price relief. Government and states agree to further fuel excise cuts and GST revenue redistribution for price relief. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The fuel excise was halved by 26.3 cents per litre for petrol and diesel, effective immediately, ABC, Guardian. States and territories agreed to forego $400 million in extra GST revenue from higher fuel prices to fund an additional 5.7 cent per litre excise cut, ABC, Guardian. The total fuel excise reduction is now 32 cents per litre, effective until June 30th, ABC, Guardian. WA Premier Roger Cook led discussions between state and territory leaders on the GST revenue redistribution, ABC. The measure aims to reduce the cost of filling a 65-litre vehicle by nearly $23, Guardian. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC does not mention the specific city-level petrol prices provided by The Guardian, e.g., Sydney at 236.6c. The Guardian states Albanese announced the changes at the National Press Club and they would start immediately, while ABC does not mention this venue or immediacy beyond almost immediately from the Commonwealth. ABC does not mention the $1.5 billion cost of halving the fuel excise, only the $400 million GST windfall, while The Guardian includes both figures. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 22 of 33. Queensland Government expanding adult crime, adult time laws despite low youth charges. Queensland Government expanding adult crime, adult time laws despite low youth charges. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Queensland Government is expanding its adult crime, adult time laws to include 12 new offences in a third round of legislation, with the bill tabled in March 2024. No children have been charged with aiding suicide or stupefying to commit an indictable offence in Queensland since 2015, according to data from the Youth Justice Department. Only 9 young people have been charged with 4 other proposed adult crime offences: disabling to commit indictable offence, conspiring to murder, administering poison with intent, abuse of persons with impairment of mind, since 2015, with 21 charged with rioting between 2015 and 2025. The most common offence charged to youth under the proposed laws is assault occasioning bodily harm, 3,022 charges from 2015 to 2025, often linked to social media, armed status, or company. The government is overriding Queensland's Human Rights Act to implement these laws, citing an exceptional crisis situation related to youth crime. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states the government's final report did not include the advice from the secret panel, while ABC does not explicitly confirm or deny whether the panel's advice was ever released or omitted. The Guardian claims the government's claim of a youth crime crisis is simply untrue and makes no sense, whereas ABC presents the government's argument as justified by an exceptional crisis situation without directly contradicting it. The Guardian mentions that the previous adult crime legislation included 6 offences not committed by children, but ABC does not provide this specific detail about prior rounds of legislation. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 23 of 33. St Kilda AFL player Lance Collard faces tribunal for alleged homophobic slur in VFL match. St Kilda AFL player Lance Collard faces tribunal for alleged homophobic slur in VFL match. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Lance Collard, 21, is facing a disciplinary tribunal for allegedly using a homophobic slur during a VFL match against Frankston on, date not specified, but referenced as last week. Collard was previously banned for 6 matches in 2024 for using a homophobic slur while playing for VFL side Sandringham, affiliated with Street Kilda. The AFL has investigated the allegation under AFL Rule 2.3a, Conduct Unbecoming. Collard was suspended for 3 weeks, reduced to 2 weeks, for a high hit on an opponent in the same match where the slur was allegedly used. The tribunal hearing is scheduled for next week. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC mentions the slur was used during a heated exchange but does not specify the round, while Newscomau explicitly states it was in round 2 of the VFL. ABC does not mention the round number for the incident, while Newscomau specifies it was round 2 against Frankston. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 24 of 33. Victorian Liberal Party pre-selection battle for Western Metropolitan Region upper house spot. Victorian Liberal Party pre-selection battle for Western Metropolitan Region upper house spot. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Moira Deeming secured the top spot on the Victorian Liberal Party's upper house ticket for the Western Metropolitan region after other candidates withdrew from the running. Dinesh Gurisetti, an Indian community leader and businessman, was initially endorsed for the same position but withdrew after it was revealed he provided a character reference for a now-convicted child sexual abuse offender. Moira Deeming was previously ejected from the Victorian Liberal Party in 2023 after attending a Let Women Speak rally gatecrashed by neo-Nazis and later expelled for threatening legal action against former leader John Pesutto. The Victorian state election is scheduled for November 2024. Moira Deeming previously dropped her candidacy in 2024 after the party favoured Dinesh Gurisetti for the same position. But not all outlets told the same story. Guardian Article 1 states Moira Deeming was the only eligible nominee remaining after other candidates withdrew, while Guardian Article 3 states multiple candidates, including Bobby Lockrow, Tim Beddoe, and Steve Murphy, initially nominated before withdrawing. Guardian Article 3 claims Bobby Lockrow's nomination was ruled invalid due to missing referral letters, but it does not specify whether Lockrow was formally notified of this before withdrawing. Guardian Article 1 does not mention the $1.55 million loan to John Pesutto or the ongoing legal challenge from breakaway Liberals, which ABC details. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 25 of 33. NASA's Artemis II mission breaks human spaceflight distance record during lunar flyby. NASA's Artemis II mission breaks human spaceflight distance record during lunar flyby. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Artemis II crew consists of Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, all NASA, and Jeremy Hansen, Canadian Space Agency. Artemis II launched on April 1, 2024, from Kennedy Space Center, Florida, aboard the Space Launch System, SLS, rocket. The mission surpassed Apollo 13's 1970 record of 248,655 miles, 400,171 kilometers from Earth, reaching a maximum distance of 252,757 miles, 406,772 kilometers on April 6, 2024. The crew entered the Moon's lunar sphere of influence on April 5, 2024, at approximately 39,000 miles, 62,800 kilometers from the Moon. The 6-hour lunar flyby occurred on April 6, 2024, with closest approach to the Moon at 4,000 miles, 6,437 kilometers, above the surface. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC states the crew's splashdown is on April 11, Australia time, while The Guardian and News.com.au state it is April 10, US Eastern Time. The Guardian mentions the crew's cabin was a little cold and required long-sleeved clothes, while ABC describes it as so cold that astronauts had to dig into their suitcases for long-sleeved clothes. ABC reports the crew's closest approach to the Moon was 6,545 kilometers, while The Guardian and News.com.au report it was approximately 4,000 miles, 6,437 kilometers. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and News.com.au. Story 26 of 33. Legal and political battle over Trump's $400 million White House ballroom project. Legal and political battle over Trump's $400 million White House ballroom project. Here's what every outlet agrees on. A federal judge, Richard Leon, ordered a temporary halt to the $400 million White House ballroom construction project on April 2025, citing lack of congressional approval. The National Trust for Historic Preservation filed a federal lawsuit in December 2024 to block the ballroom construction, arguing the administration violated laws by demolishing the East Wing without review. The National Capital Planning Commission, NCPC, is scheduled to vote on the project on April 2025, with over 35,000 public comments opposing it, including 9,000+ pages of submissions. The ballroom project involves demolishing the White House's East Wing and constructing a 90,000 square foot facility with bomb shelters, military installations, and a medical facility. The Trump administration appealed Judge Leon's ruling to the Federal Appeals Court, requesting a 14-day extension of the injunction's suspension and a decision by April 2025. But not all outlets told the same story. Article 1 states Judge Leon concluded that halting construction wouldn't jeopardize national security, but Article 2 implies Trump's administration claims the halt does pose security risks by using the phrase grave national security harms. Article 1 reports Judge Leon suspended enforcement of his order for 14 days, acknowledging that halting an ongoing construction project may raise logistical issues, while Article 3 does not mention this suspension detail. Article 2 claims Trump posted on Truth Social that no express authorization from Congress is needed, directly contradicting Judge Leon's ruling that the project lacks statutory authority. This story was covered by The Guardian. Story 27 of 33. Federal judge dismisses most of Blake Lively's sexual harassment claims against Justin Baldoni in It Ends With Us case. Federal judge dismisses most of Blake Lively's sexual harassment claims against Justin Baldoni in It Ends With Us case. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Judge Louis Lyman dismissed 10 of the 13 claims in Blake Lively's lawsuit against Justin Baldoni, including sexual harassment, conspiracy, and defamation, Guardian, ABC. Only 3 claims remain: breach of contract, retaliation, and aiding and abetting in retaliation, Guardian, ABC. Blake Lively sued Justin Baldoni in December 2023 alleging sexual harassment during filming of It Ends With Us Guardian, ABC. Judge Lyman ruled Lively was an independent contractor, not an employee, so her sexual harassment claims under Title VII were invalid, Guardian, ABC. The trial is scheduled for May 18, 2025, Guardian, ABC. But not all outlets told the same story. Guardian reports Lively's lawsuit was filed in December 2023, but ABC states it began in 2024, likely a minor timeline discrepancy. Guardian mentions Baldoni's $400 million defamation claim was dismissed in June 2024, while ABC does not specify the month but confirms dismissal. Guardian states Lively's claims were dismissed due to her being an independent contractor and the conduct occurring in New Jersey, not California, while ABC only mentions the contractor status. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 28 of 33. International talks to reopen Strait of Hormuz amid Iran blockade and global oil crisis. International talks to reopen Strait of Hormuz amid Iran blockade and global oil crisis. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong attended a virtual meeting of 35 40-plus countries, including UK, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Japan, Canada, South Korea, UAE, Nigeria, convened by UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper to discuss reopening the Strait of Hormuz on the 7th of March, 2024, AEDT 10 p.m. The US did not attend the meeting. President Donald Trump previously stated securing the strait was not America's responsibility and allies should go get your own oil. Iran has effectively blocked the Strait of Hormuz since the US-Israeli strikes began on the 28th of February, 2024, stranding 2000 ships and 20,000 seafarers, with pre-conflict daily traffic averaging 150 vessels, now 25 vessels day. The strait carries 20% of the world's oil and gas supplies, with disruptions causing global fuel price spikes and economic strain, particularly in Asia and Australia. Australia has deployed an E-7A Wedgetail surveillance aircraft to the UAE, supporting Gulf defense efforts, with 90 SAS personnel reportedly on standby in the region. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian reports 35 countries attended the meeting, while ABC and News Corp Australia report 40-plus countries participated. News Corp Australia states Donald Trump called for allies to just take it and open up naturally, while ABC and Guardian frame his comments as urging allies to handle the strait post-conflict without direct US involvement. ABC, first instance, reports Italy, Netherlands, and UAE called for a humanitarian corridor, but The Guardian does not mention this specific demand. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 29 of 33. Missing man swept away in floodwaters near Inaminka, SA, with search ending in tragedy. Missing man swept away in floodwaters near Inaminka, SA, with search ending in tragedy. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Tony Aspden, 65, was last seen on April 4 around 12 p.m. near Inaminka, South Australia, walking across Cordillo Downs Road when swept into floodwaters. Tony Aspden's body was recovered on Monday morning, April 7, around 10:30 a.m. No suspicious circumstances are involved in Tony Aspden's death, according to police. Inaminka is approximately 820 to 1,065 kilometers north of Adelaide by road and near the Queensland border, 25 kilometers or 40 kilometers from the border, depending on source. Flood warnings were in place for Inaminka since April 1, with the lower Cooper Creek system remaining in flood. But not all outlets told the same story. News Kamau states Inaminka is 820 kilometers north of Adelaide, while ABC states it is 1,065 kilometers by road. News Kamau says Tony Aspden was last seen on Easter Saturday, April 4, at 12 p.m., but ABC does not specify the exact time beyond about midday. News Kamau mentions flood warnings since April 1 with a note about the lower Cooper Creek's fluctuating levels, while ABC does not detail this specific forecast. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au. Story 30 of 33. Trump appoints J.D. Vance as fraud czar targeting Democratic states with fraud crackdowns. Trump appoints J.D. Vance as fraud czar targeting Democratic states with fraud crackdowns. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Donald Trump appointed J.D. Vance as his fraud czar on the 4th of April, 2024, focusing on Democratic states. Federal officials announced 8 arrests in California on the 4th of April, 2024 for over $50 million in Medicare healthcare fraud tied to sham hospice care. The accused in California included healthcare professionals like nurses and a psychologist operating fraudulent hospice facilities. The arrests were part of Operation Never Say Die targeting Southern California's hospice fraud, with FBI Assistant Director O'Keel Davis calling it a high-risk environment. California Governor Gavin Newsom stated the state banned new hospice licenses in 2021 and revoked over 280 licenses since 2024, pursuing 100-plus criminal cases. But not all outlets told the same story. Trump claims fraud in California is unprecedented and so large it could balance the budget, but California Governor Gavin Newsom argues the state has already taken aggressive action against hospice fraud with 280-plus license revocations and 100-plus criminal cases. Trump alleges Minnesota is a fraud hotspot and froze $250 million in childcare funding, while Minnesota Governor Tim Walz denies fraud claims and accuses Trump's DOJ of gutting fraud prosecutions and shooting protesters. The Guardian reports Trump's administration halted $250 million in Medicaid funds to Minnesota, but does not specify whether this was a temporary or permanent action. This story was covered by The Guardian. Story 31 of 33. WNBA expansion draft selects 3 Australian players for new teams Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo. WNBA expansion draft selects 3 Australian players for new teams Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Nyaju Puok was selected by the Portland Fire in the WNBA expansion draft as the 16th overall pick. Chloe Bibby was selected by the Portland Fire as the 11th overall pick in the expansion draft. Christy Wallace was selected by the Toronto Tempo as the 21st overall pick in the expansion draft. Sandy Brondello is coaching the Toronto Tempo and previously led the Australian Opals to Olympic bronze. The WNBA expansion draft occurred to form the 14th, Portland Fire, and 15th, Toronto Tempo, teams. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states Portland selected Bridget Carlton with the first pick, but ABC does not mention this detail. The Guardian lists Julie Allemand as the first pick for Toronto Tempo, while ABC does not reference her selection. ABC specifies the WNBA draft for college overseas players is on April 13, but The Guardian does not mention this date. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian. Story 32 of 33. Court rejects suppression order on Bondi gunmen's family identities. Court rejects suppression order on Bondi gunmen's family identities. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Naved Akram is charged with 15 counts of murder, 40 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of committing a terrorist act related to the Bondi attack, ABC, News Kamau, Guardian. Akram's father, Sajid Akram, 50, was shot dead by police during the December 14 attack, ABC, News Kamau, Guardian. The attack occurred at a Chinooka by the Sea event at Bondi Beach on December 14, killing 15 people, ABC, News Kamau, Guardian. A photograph of Naved Akram's driver's license, including his address, was posted on social media shortly after the shooting, ABC, News Kamau, Guardian. Judge Hugh Donnelly dismissed a 40-year suppression order on Akram's family's identities, ruling the information was already public, ABC, News Kamau, Guardian. But not all outlets told the same story. The ABC describes the family's home as being in constant fear with incidents including loud banging on the front door late at night, while News Kamau and Guardian do not mention this specific detail. The Guardian states the suppression order was denied because it did not meet the exceptional circumstances threshold, while ABC and News Kamau focus more on the order being ineffective due to pre-existing public information. News Kamau mentions Akram's brother had been identified in a story about visiting Goulburn jail, but ABC and Guardian do not reference this specific incident. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, and news.com.au. Story 33 of 33. Human bones discovered during construction on Rottnest Island trigger police investigation. Human bones discovered during construction on Rottnest Island trigger police investigation. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Human bones were found during construction work at Holy Trinity Church on Rottnest Island on Wednesday morning. Police are investigating the origin of the bones, with forensic assessments underway to determine their age. Construction involved upgrading Rottnest Island's main bus stop, including a new bus access road, shelters, seating, decking, and an accessible ramp entrance for Holy Trinity Church. Rottnest Island, Wajamup, operated as an Aboriginal prison and forced labour camp from 1838 to 1931, incarcerating nearly 4,000 Aboriginal men and boys. The island is located 19 kilometres off the WA coast, near Fremantle, and measures 11 kilometres long by 4.5 kilometres wide. But not all outlets told the same story. News Kamau states nearly 4,000 Aboriginal men and boys were imprisoned, while ABC cites 3,700 from WA state records. ABC mentions the construction upgrade included additional seating and decking, while News Kamau does not specify these details. News Kamau does not mention the burial ground area becoming tentland, a detail included in ABC. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au.